Sean, hypothetically, and I know this again. I know we don't necessarily know who's staying or who's gone yet. We'll get to that. Who would you build around? If you're Jim Tanner and Hubert Davis, Sean, who would you build around that's on this roster right now? Or would you rather try to go get somebody else and build around that person? Because, we've seen RJ Davis, no more years, right? And so who would you build around?
I think that's a tough question because I don't think you're building around anybody. Even Drake Powell, if he were to come back, you're not going to build around Drake Powell because he's too limited offensively in my mind. I think there's improvement points, and he did better in certain areas than expected, and I think there is a lot of potential there. But he's not a guy you can truly build around. I think he could be a. Well, Sherrell might disagree. I think he's a piece of the puzzle. But I think to me, it's once again this goes back to the hard part of there's a lot of pieces needed versus over the years maybe it's two pieces here, three pieces there, and we've seen how one decision can basically make a team great. In terms of look at UConn last year winning a championship, they almost had Nick Timberlake as their shooting guard, and he went to Kansas. Same thing. If UNC had ended up with Nick Timberlake, they don't get Cormac, and they're probably not a 1 seed. And then this year they get Cade Tyson. You can go on, right? So it does go to Jim Tanner and his ability to evaluate the player, the skill set, and the financial situation to make sure that it's all fitting within budget. But also, I don't have the inside knowledge of where people are leaning. So once again, I think I would love to see if both the freshmen are coming back to improve over the sophomore year. I think Drake Powell is maybe the more realistic one, and I think defensively he does give a lot of versatility, but that still means offensively you need, from 1 through 5, players that can play consistently, that play smart, and most importantly to me, can shoot the ball and have athleticism. So to me, when you're looking in the portal, those have to be the focuses. And then once again, the decisions around who you're building around are going to be financial, at least in the next week or two.
Man, 700 some odd people in the chat with us tonight live. Thank y'all so much for working your evenings around us. Sherrell, next question I'd ask about roster management stuff. What do you feel like the personnel goals should be, right? I think we tiptoed around kind of some attitude, some dog/dude type players. But I'll let you take this any way you want to go. Does it need to be a certain skill set? Does it need to be a certain body type? Does it need to be a certain kind of type of player on the floor? I think Sean led you in a couple directions, but I want to ask you, what do you feel like need to be the shopping list as North Carolina goes into this portal season that opens this week?
Well, they're always looking for difference makers, and difference makers can mean a lot of things. In football, I listened to Staples talk about difference makers on defense and how, 1 millisecond or half of a second between two guys is the difference between like a regular player and a difference maker. And I think you're seeing that. Like, for example, Venal Lubin was tremendous down the stretch for UNC. I mean, he played some really good basketball, but consistently over the course of 36 or 37 games, you need someone a little more athletic, a little taller, someone who's a little bit better at getting their own shot. So, like, the difference between him and a true difference maker might not be a ton, but it could just be size. So, like, that's what they're looking for, difference makers pretty much at every position. And to Sean's point, I think you have to prioritize scoring because, Ian Jackson's made it clear for some time that his goal was to go to the NBA. And I think you have to take him at his word for it, that he wants to go to the NBA. And more than likely, if he's a first-round pick, you would assume he's going to leave. RJ Davis is gone. So that's your, I don't want to say best, but that's your 2 most prolific three-point shooters from the outside, gone already, under that scenario. And then, when you build the roster from there, there are guys who maybe have made shots at times or made shots at low volume who have to continue to improve on that. So you're going to need like an influx of perimeter scoring regardless of who decides to leave and who comes back. So that's 2 things, like a difference maker in the post and then perimeter firepower, I guess is how you would put it. And I think what you've seen this year is that even though for a long time I didn't think it was a thing, there has to be a component of vocal leadership, whether it's someone who doesn't play a lot or someone who plays all the time. You have to have that. and usually that comes from the more experienced players. So I look to UNC to it could be someone who be the eighth or ninth man, but just someone who has an attitude of I'm gonna take over. This is going to be a player-led team. If somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, I'm going to call them out. If someone is late for a meeting, I'm going to call them out. If someone is not running as hard at practice, if the coach doesn't call them out, I'm going to do it myself. Like they need that, and that's not disparaging the guys who are on the team this year. It's just not their personality. So you have to have a mix. Like I think you can't have. We said this last year. You can't have 15 Jerry Stackhouses on a team, but you also can't have who's the nicest person in the world? Who does everybody love? I'm trying to think of an example.
Ted Lasso.
You can't have 15 Ted Lassos and you can't have 15 Jerry Stackhouses. You need to have a blend of the two. And I think this year there was too many Ted Lassos and not enough Jerry Stackhouses, whereas last year there was a good mix of the two.
Which I think when you're evaluating the players, that is a column that you need to have as an assessment along with the stats and the position, etc. I think what was it? Two years ago, Paxton Wojcik was the first commitment, and I think there's a lot of questions. Why the heck are they signing him? But it was a great commitment at the time because he wasn't, once again, about expectations. He wasn't going to be a starter, but hey, here's a guy that, at least from a vocal and a leadership perspective, you're going to get that whether he's playing 2 minutes or 0 minutes. And then they were able to add that as they went. And then I just saw a comment that I didn't really address the question. I think I did by saying there's nobody on the team that I would put my stake in building around. I think you're going to have Wilson, who's extremely talented from a freshman perspective. Ideally, you can get Drake back, but then around those, you need to offset some of their strengths and weaknesses. So it's definitely not an RJ and Armando situation this time around.